kat Sarawak banyak cerita legenda, yang cerita dongeng. Tapi yang selalu saya dengar adalah legenda ikan patin. Ada seorang nelayan menjumpai bayi perempuan dalam perahu. Dia ngambil bayi perempuannya balik rumah, dia jaga sampai besar. Bayi perempuannya dah besar, ada seorang lelaki bertemu dengan bayi perempuannya tadi. Pemuda lelaki itu mau kahwin dengan bayi perempuan itu. Jadi perempuan yang beri syarat dengan lelaki untuk supaya jangan suruh perempuan itu senyum ataupun ketawa. Ada suatu hari itu pemuda lelaki itu bermain dengan anak sidak sampai yang perempuan itu tetap ketawalah. Ketawa terbahak-bahak, lekak-lekek, perih kata orang Sarawak tak bah. Jadi ternampaklah insang ikannya di dalam mulutnya. Jadi bila dah langgar syarat tetek, si perempuan tetek berekod pergi sungai, lalu tiba-tiba berubah, slow berubah menjadi ikan. Ada sisir, ada insang. Kata orang tua, mungkin kita makan ikan patin tetek boleh jadi gila, boleh meroyan macam ni lah. Kata orang tua dulu, ya didengar kami. Ya jak lah.
Sebenarnya banyak cerita dongeng dalam Sarawak, dan antaranya ada Puteri Santubong, Pangkal Libau, dan saya lebih gemar bila cerita Sultan Tengah.
One of my favorite is, I think, about the princess Puteri Santubong and Puteri Sejinjang.
Most famous one is the Puteri Santubong.
我个人是比较喜欢 Puteri Santubong.
Once upon a time, there were two princesses who were sent down from the heavens, Puteri Santubong and Puteri Sejinjang. Puteri Santubong was sent to govern Kampung Pasir Kuning, while Puteri Sejinjang was tasked to take charge of Kampung Pasir Putih. As a condition, they must never fight each other. Otherwise, they will suffer a terrible fate if that oath is broken.
Sarawak has a lot of beautiful stories. They are passed down through the generations.
Different countries have their own local stories. They are sometimes similar, even from totally different places.
Yasu, have you heard about the tale of the two princesses?
No, but it sounded very interesting. I thought the beginning was a good setup.
Good, he's hooked. Today we will talk about how to make our local stories more appealing to the international audience.
This is the last episode for the craft of a story this time.
Let's explore the treasures that we have.
Puteri Santubong was highly skilled in sewing and weaving, while Puteri Sejinjang's skill contributed to the thriving of paddy fields in the village. One day, a handsome prince from Matang came to visit Kampung Pasir Kuning, and he was attracted by the beautifully woven textiles. This made Puteri Sejinjang jealous. Both princesses fell in love with the prince, and jealousy and envy caused tension between them. As the two princesses started fighting, the villagers from the two kampongs started fighting too. Angered by the princesses who broke their oath, the king of the heavens cursed them, turning them into separated lands, Mount Santubong and Pulau Kera. What theme or message did the ancient people in Sarawak try to impart through this folktale? Well, as we have been learning the craft of story, I think you can already see the structure of a short story in this folktale. The story of Putri Santubong is the main plot of this famous folktale, while the subplots of Putri Sejinjang and the prince are woven together to make the whole story more interesting.
Since ancient times, people have been observing this world and sharing their stories. We made up stories about the mountains, the trees, the stars. Nature is beautiful, but can be very destructive at times. People sometimes have to suffer through these destructive powers. I think whenever we are awed by the world and nature, we cannot help but be inspired to create stories about it.
This is one of my favorite angles to see Santubong Mountain. I used this wide shot for our movie Nota.
Tempat tadi hampir jadi kubur kami. Apa? Kalau tak hujan, kami dimakan buaya di sana, kami rela. Rela berkorban? Ya memang benar ya. Kami bangga kalau kami dapat jadi penjaga Sungai Bangku.
B and I were on the way to the Bako National Park. I still remember the sensation when I saw this mountain from here for the first time. Of course, at that time, I didn't know about the tale of the two princesses, but majestic nature always gives us great inspiration.
Malaysia has a lot of beautiful locations to inspire creators. Why not use them? Yasu sees these locations through a foreigner's eyes, while we Malaysians, me included, sometimes miss the beauty of what we have here as we see it every single day. Maybe we should have fresh eyes to see the beauty and richness of what we have here.
Folktales are interesting to hear or read about. It is sometimes like a fantasy, sometimes very mysterious. If you like to create something based on a folktale, what is a good way to use them?
Many storytellers try to use these folktales, but fail, because the created story becomes less interesting than the original folktale. You can adapt an original story to create your own version of the story. Not only from folktales, but also from other literatures. As we mentioned, a novel and a screenplay are totally different mediums. You have to understand the characteristics of each medium.
Maybe instead of using the story itself, you can use only the theme and the message that you can learn from these folk tales.
For example, what did we learn from the tale of the two princesses? They were supposed to never fight each other, but once one of them got jealous, everything went wrong.
Although we are siblings, we tend to argue.
Because the story is about two women, two women have the conflict with each other because of one man.
If it is yours, and eventually it will come to you. But if it's not, there's no point of you arguing with your loved one just because of that single man.
Folktale seems to be very unique because it is based on domestic culture. The interesting thing is, similar stories exist all over the world. You know why? Because the theme and the message within these folk tales are universal issue.
There are many stories about love triangles, not only the tale of the two princesses. Jealousy and envy are always the central issues in these stories.
If we replace the genre and target audience, we can even make a tale of two princesses into a romantic comedy for the modern young audience.
Actually, there is another way to use a folktale wisely. By adding the taste and essence of a folktale, your story will have a richer flavor and depth of meaning. Just like adding spices when you cook, you don't have to use the whole folktale.
Bujang Senang, a tale of giant white crocodile, is another famous folktale in Sarawak. It is the story of an invincible Iban warrior who could not be hurt even with the parang. But in the end, he and his wife were killed with spears and arrows on the bank of Batang Lupa River. As the warrior's soul wanted revenge, later the ancient Iban god transformed him into a giant white crocodile that terrorized the villages along the river.
Apa yang Bebel tadi?
Kami nyuruh Boya. Dari jauh Boya boleh dengar kalau kita bisa ataupun patah daun sirih. Jadi daun sirih yang tidak rusak. Kita hanyut di permukaan air sebagai petanda yang kita mau masuk kawasan dia orang secara aman.
When I saw this sign by the river for the first time, I freaked out. Scary, but interesting. Crocodiles in the river. But I knew that the story I wanted to write is not about a crocodile. So I decided to use the episode of crocodiles as one subplot in Nota.
Tahun 1977, bot kami rosak. Kami dalam air Toho tengah bikin bot. Boya ini nyerang kami.
Serang?
Ya. Dia coba nakam belakang kami
Kami dapat ngelak bila kami mau panjat bot. Nya cuba nekam kaki kami dapat ngelak lagi. Nasib baik tulang kaki kami tidak patah. Bila kami sudah ada dalam bot, nya masih mau nyekang kami. Hampir setengah badannya masuk dalam bot kami. Kami tidak ada pilihan. Kami ambil empulin, kami cucuk mata dan palanya banyak kali. Sampailah dia tidak bergerak.
Remember, a story is woven together with many strings that are called plots. You can do anything with them, but if you expand your story with the wrong subplot, your story might be unclear. Then your audience will get confused. What is the story about?
We added the taste of crocodiles, especially to develop the character of the boatman. That gave an additional layer to the whole story in the end.
The young generation are storytellers of our future. They have fresh ideas, but it is always good to learn the basic craft of storytelling first, before they explore their own styles. Our world sometimes goes through hardships. People struggle to survive. But these conflicts make us stronger. Just like the main characters in a story become stronger through the process of his or her journey.
You don't really want to watch anything depressing. A lot of people wanted to see happy films or comedy films. It's something that you can run away from having the problems that you do at.
I don't like to think that much. I don't like to watch movies that are too serious and all that requires me to think that much. So I prefer something which is something laid back and casual. So I think rom-com is the best usually.
I like films that are more raw in emotion, like they're more intimate.
Action movie, adventures. Although sometimes the story might not end with a happy ending, but it also delivers some moral, some values that we should learn during this pandemic.
Because we're going to stay at home, as per before, we will stay at home for 14 days. Right now, maybe 10 days if we're going to get quarantined. So I would choose series over a movie.
I would prefer something light so that it helps us to actually go through our stressful days. Something like romance, something like comedy, and even game shows. Yeah. Oh, that's a tricky question. That's a tricky question.
All these Zoom, Google Meets have become such an important part of our lives. So how people react, or their facial expressions, or stories of people communicating.
In terms of the pandemic right now, I'm spending more time with my family. There are stories that I hear from my dads, let's say about my culture. And it makes me realize, like, wow, you know, if I am given the time and place to do it, I think I would, yeah.
How tiny people, how small people, that they would overcome their struggle and their hardships, and then to portray that values to people so we can encourage each other to continue to believe and have faith in a better future and better life.
Sharing my own personal experience, I went through a very terrible experience during this pandemic. let's say if I have the talent in script writing, if I have the resources, I would like to share my experience with others through something that they can see on screen, and it's something that they can relate with me as well.
Everybody has a desire to tell a story and communicate. But mastering the techniques and skills of storytelling is not always easy. Just like our communication with others, which are not easy sometimes. Yasu and B believe that the education of storytelling is important. They organize various visual storytelling classes and carry out study groups for the participants who took their classes. Learning the craft of storytelling is a lifelong process. We can enjoy this process and see how we improve our skills to communicate with the audience and others.
Our journey is almost ending.
We have been sharing the beauty of the craft of story.
Aristotle used to say, people enjoy learning something important from a story without being taught.
That is the power of storytelling. Since ancient times, we have been creating and sharing countless stories.
Many stories are beautifully structured, and its beauty takes our breath away.
Remember, you can use the basic 3-act format for anything with a timeline. For example, this is my lifespan. So far, I have lived in 3 different countries that are very different. In my 50s, maybe I am standing around here. Well, in the near future, I might have to make a big decision, just like a main character standing at plot point 2.
Remember, our everyday life is full of small adventures. A creator can capture them and bring the audience into the adventure.
Remember, the process of creation is very organic. Lately, the development of technology is very advanced. Maybe in the near future, some of the process of storytelling can be done by artificial intelligence. Yes, storytelling is a skill and technique of communication. But do you think AI will replace our position as storytellers? I don't think so.
We will continue to use billions and billions of words to share our stories. Not only words, but also images and sound.
Thank you for coming on this journey with us. If we become good storytellers, if we become good communicators, will this world be a better place?
We believe so. The craft of storytelling will always need the human touch.
Our journey will continue, like the flow of this river.